Hey everybody, this is Jim and welcome to week 2 in ALEC 102. So this week, in addition to our kind of introing the service learning project, our theme is levels of communication. And if you're going to take a course on interpersonal skills and leadership, you're going to start with communication because as leaders we are communicating, as many of you noted in your discussions about what leadership is, communication is essential. And in relationships, communication is essential. And leadership is often about people, and therefore communication is essential. So what this chapter does is attempt to discuss something that we don't often analyze, but is there, namely that we're communicating at different levels of communication. Now, I'm going to highlight not everything in the slides, but just some of the key things that you should note that are part of the quiz and also part of your discussions. So, it's, I think, important, this quote here by Dodge lays it out, that a high level of trust has to be established before you can have open and honest communication with another individual. So levels of communication are enhanced between leader and follower when we're building trust. Now, here's 5 levels of communication: cliches, facts, opinions, feelings, complete openness. They kind of move into a deeper stage each level up. Again, it's not something that we often analyze, but we can see its present conversations about the weather or about particular facts of where we're from and what our major is versus opinions we have about UNL versus feelings we may have about the COVID experience. You can see each of those levels gets to a different level of depth in communication. So there is a slide that discusses each level, and you should note that in the chapter as well as some examples. So I'm going to move on to a couple of other subjects just that, again, are important for you to grasp in this chapter. One is self-monitoring. Now, we do this in communication all the time, again, without necessarily thinking of it. It's kind of, for a lack of a better definition, the manipulation of the image that we present to others. Now, this happens in family, this happens in work-employee relationships, this happens if you volunteer in an organization. So, and what research shows is there tends to be 2 extremes: the high self-monitors, where they adjust their behavior intentionally based upon how others react to them. Low self-monitors, they're not concerned at all with the image they present. They communicate thoughts and feelings and openly without trying to manipulate impressions. You know, kind of, hey, I'm just out there. I say whatever comes to mind. Those are probably the 2 extremes, and most of us lie somewhere in between. Okay, along that same line then is self-disclosure, where we begin to make ourselves known. We tell our story, and we hear stories, or we discuss things about ourselves as we build relationships and have open and honest communication. You should take note of some different degrees of self-disclosure, and then also note in the reading that sometimes self-disclosure isn't just basic conversations. It could be catharsis, where we're unloading emotions, or it could be some self-clarification or self-validation or self-justification. We've been accused of something, or it could just be impression formation, social control, manipulation. All those kinds of things are sort of subtly going on sometimes in our conversations, even when we're doing basic self-disclosure. You could take note of some of that in the chapter, and then it comes up in our discussion board as well. So, okay, so you can see here's the levels of different communication. Here's the levels of disclosure, and as those go up, you build the levels of trust. There's greater trust going up. Trust leads to relationships that are synergistic. And by synergy, we mean the action of several units which together have a greater total effect than the sum of the individual effects. Now, we often think of this in teams, and we think of this in sports. They have a certain synergy. Well, the goal of trust, and one of the roles of trust, is to bring more synergy in our leader-follower relationships and in our team settings. Here's some of the levels of communication that you want to note that are part of building trust. The lowest level, defensive communication, we know what some of that is. Then respectful communication, you get to the highest level of trust, and now you have synergistic communication, partnership, working together. You understand each other, and you're able to achieve more together. So the next concept that comes up in the chapter is the Johari window. And this is a research concept that shows that there are 4 windows. There you see the 4, yellow, green, blue, and pink, that represent the relationship between self-disclosure and feedback. So are you an open person where you share and people give feedback? Are you hidden? Things are known to you but not others. Are you blind? Things are known to others but not to you. And then there's unknown, things that we don't know about ourselves, other people don't know. Now, what Johari did in his research was establish that a lot of communication, and most communication relationships at any given time, operate like this window. Some of us have a bigger open window and a smaller unknown window. Sometimes we're with strangers, we have a big unknown window and a smaller open window. Or maybe we're very hidden with some people, but very open with others. So you can see, as you read through that, we're going to ask in the discussion, what kind of Johari window do you have in some of the relationships that you have? And this is helpful to think through in terms of the levels of communication and trust that we want to build. Okay, here's some helpful guidelines to read through about open communication and levels of communication and trust. And then finally, some conclusions to wrap us up. So there you have it. That is the levels of communication presentation slideshow. And again, I would encourage you to go to the modules unit, look at the module overview, look at the module resources and the articles and videos that are there. There is a discussion on this levels of communication Thursday. You post, you interact with your peers on Sunday and take a quiz. And then second, there is the service learning component where there is some things for you to do in discussion as a group. And I'm going to pull this up here. This is all under modules, week 2 module. All of this is under week 2 in the modules, the module overview, the module resources, the service learning project intro, the levels of communication quiz, and the 2 discussions. So, okay, have a great week.